Okay, so as much as I would like to call it a night, having just dropped my latest Maddie Soto video, I saw this case on Plunder's channel, and straight away I saw red flags, and I just thought I have to talk about this case. So this case is in Nova Scotia, and the missing children are Lily and Jack Sullivan. Lily is 6, Jack is 4. The story, apparently, is that while their mother and stepfather were sleeping in their bedroom with their 18-month-old baby, Lily and Jack apparently let themselves out of the house and wandered off into the woods, and have now been missing for going on a week. That's the short story. But when you start to look at it, it doesn't look good. And I think authorities are saying now that they don't believe that the children are still alive. They are being very hedgy about what they are saying in terms of what they believe is going on or has occurred. But there was a news conference today or yesterday, and at that news conference they announced that they were scaling back the search. This is barely a week since the children have gone missing. And I know that it gets cold at night time at Nova Scotia. I know they've had some pretty nasty weather. But to me, them saying after only a week that they are scaling back the search says to me that they know the children didn't wander off into the woods on their own, and they are focusing their investigation elsewhere. So, with that said, this is intended to be an introductory video. I do want to dig into interviews that were done by both the stepfather and the mother, because I've really got a lot to say about them. I will play them in this video, but I will only touch on my thoughts with them because I think it's something that needs a major breakdown. I'm going to go through a few news stories and the press conference, and then I will finish with the statements by the parents. And I think you'll see by the time we get to the end of this why within the first 5 minutes of watching Paula's video I was straight up going, whoa, red flags. There's one point, the first time I heard the stepfather speak, I was sitting here, obviously no one could hear me, but I was sitting here going, no, 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 no. It was so apparent things weren't right, and I will get to that. So with that said, let's have a look at some news stories first, and then have a quick look at the press conference, and then go from there.
In other news today, the search continues this morning for 2 missing children in rural Nova Scotia. Crews have been combing through the woods around Pictou County since Friday, when police believe they wandered away from their home. Brett Ruskin is live in Halifax. He's picking up the story for us this morning. Where do things stand today, Brett, with the search efforts?
Good morning, Heather. Yes, search efforts are continuing this morning for these 2 missing children here in Nova Scotia. So we have 6-year-old Lily Sullivan and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan. They went missing on Friday morning. Now, we heard from the children's stepfather recently. Here's what he had to say about this situation.
The last few days have been very stressful. I mean, ever since the Friday morning, when we noticed that the children were gone, immediately jumped in the vehicle, surveyed all the areas, many dirt roads, many culverts as I could, and waited for the police to get there.
So, like I said, I'm not going to jump too much into all the red flags that I see with the parents, but I do want to comment on one thing that you will see in other interviews, and that is watching his eyes. He is constantly looking at the interviewer for confirmation that they are buying his story. You watch how much his eyes are moving around. He's wanting to make sure that his story is being bought. This is just one of many red flags. Like I said, I'll break this down properly in another video.
So again, this search began with family members and has now expanded to dozens of search and rescue volunteers. About 160 people were on the ground yesterday. There were dogs brought in to try to catch a scent of these two children. There were 8 drone units in the skies searching, as well as a couple of helicopters as well, each one of them equipped with infrared sensors and cameras looking for these children. Now,
I just want to mention, for those of us who followed the Kylie Rodney case and did research into various equipment that is used by drones and helicopters and stuff, once you start using LiDAR, which is one of the standard pieces of equipment now with helicopters, you could just about find a lost rabbit in those woods. And even if, at the time that the search began, even if the children were deceased, it takes 12 hours for a body to cool. Sounds like the search was started pretty quickly. So the fact that they have had so many helicopters, so many drones up there, and so many searchers, to me is a huge red flag.
we heard from police talking about some of the challenging conditions and logistical issues that they are running into with this situation, with the situation on the ground. Here's what police had to say about this search.
With the wet weather, it makes things a little more complicated for our searchers. Given they're in the woods, it's wet, things are slippery, footing's not the greatest. It's the water's it's not the best, but they're still trudging through and they're still working hard at doing the job that they have to do.
Again, we know that 6-year-old Lily Sullivan and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan went missing on Friday morning. That is when this search began and when the family reported them missing. And again, the search has been ongoing since that time. Heather.
Brett, I'm sure people following the story closely, those who are close at hand in terms of proximity, what can people do if they're trying and hoping to help?
Yeah, folks might think that, hey, I live nearby, I can hop in the car and go and search through the woods. I can help out as well, but that's not necessarily what officials want. They say this is a very coordinated, very organized search. They know where each one of the crews are. They know the areas that have been searched already and the areas that they are now focusing on. So advising residents to not just drive out and try to help out with the search on their own in the woods. One thing.
In other words, they only want experienced searchers, whether that is searchers who belong to a volunteer group or trained law enforcement individuals. To me, that says they only want searchers who know how to preserve evidence if there is evidence discovered. If they truly believed that these children were just missing, that they had just wandered into the bush, into the what do you call it, the woods, they wouldn't be stopping the public from joining in. they are wanting to ensure that if there is a crime scene out there, that it will not be compromised by members of the public who don't know what they're doing. That, of course, is only my opinion, but it certainly appears that way to me.
That people can help with is searching their own properties, looking in ditches, culverts, sheds, or any other possible hiding area that these kids, that these children may have used for shelter. That is how people can help. And again, we know that the temperature has dropped a little bit overnight, but we haven't seen below zero temperatures. So again, these search efforts are continuing now, beginning their 4th day of searching.
Again, saying, well, people can help by searching their own properties. That's kind of standard, really, isn't it? I mean, when you have missing children and you have absolutely nothing to go on to figure out where they ended up, then obviously you don't want to discount every possibility. So even though it sounds like they're pretty convinced that those children didn't walk off into the woods, they've still got to double check. So asking people to check their own properties gives people something to do without them actually interfering with the search parties, but it also checks that off. So next up is the press conference. So this was about 12 hours ago. So this morning, Australia time, probably yesterday for you guys. I've edited out all the French because their public information officer is bilingual, so she's actually saying things in English and French.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I am Corporal Carly McCann, Provincial Public Information Officer for the Nova Scotia RCMP. Thank you all for being here today. First, I acknowledge that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional and unceded ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. I also recognize that African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose histories, legacies, and contributions have enriched that part of Mi'kma'ki known as Nova Scotia for over 400 years.
I find it really cool that Canada also does an acknowledgement of country like Australia does, basically acknowledging the First Peoples who lived in the area, acknowledging their land.
At this time, I invite the following officers to the podium with me. Inspector Mike Ingalls, District Policing Officer for Northeast Nova District RCMP, Staff Sergeant Curtis McKinnon, Pictou County District Commander, Staff Sergeant Rob McCammon, Acting Officer in Charge of Major Crimes and Behavioral Sciences Group, and Amy Hansen, Search Manager with Colchester Ground Search and Rescue.
Honestly, that would be me looking all concerned and trying to turn the damn thing off, because the noise that it was making certainly wasn't exactly just your average ringtone. And you know what? To the journalist who decided to use their phone for the recording rather than just proper gear, sucks to be you.
Staff Sergeant Curtis McKinnon will provide you with an overview of the efforts to find Lily and Jack. He will review the search and investigation that began on Friday morning and provide the current status and next steps. We will take questions from media present following that. I invite Staff Sergeant McKinnon to the podium. J'invite maintenant le Sergent d'État McKinnon à prendre la parole. Merci.
Thank you all for being here today. First of all, our thoughts go to the family and loved ones of Lily and Jack Sullivan, to their communities, and to everyone who's worked day and night in an effort to find the children and bring them home. Since the first 911 call was received by the RCMP, reporting that 6-year-old Lily and 4-year-old Jack had wandered away from their home on Garlick Road in Lansdowne Station, a multi-agency search has been underway. Teams have been working around the clock. This search has included many agencies, including volunteer ground search and rescue teams from across Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, the Civil Air Search and Rescue Association, known as CASERA, Department of Natural Resources Air Services, Nova Scotia Public Safety and Field Communications, Nova Scotia Guard, Joint Rescue Coordination Centre, Salvation Army, the Canada Heavy Urban Search and Rescue Task Force 5, and several RCMP units, including police, dog services, and drone operators.
In other words, they have pretty much thrown every available resource into trying to find these children, which again says to me those children did not walk off into the woods.
Since Saturday, because we treat all missing person files as suspicious until our investigation leads us to determine otherwise, our Major Crimes Unit has been engaged. It's been an all hands-on deck effort using every available resource and tool. Since the search began on May 2nd, it has been concentrated in the Garlic Road area and has covered 4 square kilometers of heavy wooded rural terrain. Up to 160 trained volunteer searchers, along with many others, have been involved in the search each day. Tens of thousands of search hours have been dedicated to scouring the area, and GSAR has confirmed that over 100 tracks has been laid using GPS and grid searches. Efforts to locate Lily and Jack have also included 2 vulnerable missing person alerts, posting their children's photos and information on Nova Scotia RCMP website and social media accounts. Our social accounts have more than 300,000 followers, and releasing information to local media as well as reporters across the country. Lily and Jack have made headlines from coast to coast. While the search has been ongoing, RCMP officers continued with the missing person investigation, speaking with family and community members to gather tips and other information that could help locate the children.
So when you listen to the wording, you can tell it's an investigation. It's not a missing children investigation, it's a criminal investigation. They have been speaking to the family and community in order to get tips and other information to help them find the children. If the children have just walked out of the home into the woods, you're not really after tips and other information. To me, that says that they are digging into the family background, digging into the relationship between the mother and the stepfather, digging into the children's background. And I mean, let's be real, he's talking about a heavy wooded rural area. This is a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. They would not have gone far, especially not in the rain. He's also talking about grid searches. If those kids were out there, they would have only been within a 5-mile radius of the home. Even if they got lost, they would almost certainly hunker down in that rain. They're not going to keep walking in that rain. And I'd imagine searchers would be aware of that and would have been searching those sorts of locations where little kids might hunker down to get out of the rain.
We have not received any confirmed reports of sightings. Lily and Jack's family has been provided with regular updates on the search and on the missing person investigation. They've also been afforded supports. As of today, May 7th, the active search efforts to locate Lily and Jack will be scaled back. We're transitioning from a full-scale search to searches of more specific spaces that have already been searched by our teams. We want to circle back to increase the probability that all clues have been found. And when transitioning from an active search to a scaled-back search, the probability of survival is taken into consideration. I want to assure you that our missing persons investigation continues. We're not packing up, and we're not giving up. Our investigation is broad, and it won't end until we know where Lily and Jack are and can bring them home.
I mean, to be saying only 6 days in that they're going for a more specific search, they're looking at more specific search areas, they're going from an active search to a scaled back search. That to me says everything I need to know. scaled back as opposed to active means that basically now what they're looking for is remains. And they're probably targeting areas where they believe that the children may have been put, not areas that the children may have gotten to on foot. This is just my speculation, of course, but based on what they are saying. Particularly when he says their investigation is broad. In other words, they're looking at it from many angles. Yes, they are continuing to search. They have a scaled back search with targeted areas, but it's a broad investigation, meaning that's not all that they are looking at this point in time.
We'll continue to investigate and chase leads for as long as and as hard as we have to. We have the best investigators working every aspect of the file. We continue to appeal to anyone who have information related to our investigation and who has not yet spoken to us to contact the Pictou County District RCMP at 902-485-4333 or Crime Stoppers.
They have the best investigators working every aspect of the file. And they're essentially asking for more people who might know something to come forward. If the children have just gone out into the woods, then you don't need your best investigators, you need your best search team. And asking for more people to come forward with information, again, they're not asking psychics to come forward and say, I can get inside these kids' mind and know that where they've gone. They're asking for people to come forward and give them information on the family. I think over time that there's going to be a lot of things that come out that aren't going to be so good looking for the family.
Before I close, I want to reiterate that our hearts go out to Lily and Jack's family, to the community, and the people who've worked so incredibly hard to date. Many of us have children of our own and have wanted nothing more than to reunite Lily and Jack with their loved ones. Thank you.
One thing I noticed with this presser is that the entire way through, not a single person who was up there talking to the media referred to wanting to get Lily and Jack back with their parents or their mother or their stepfather or anything like that. It was always their family and their loved ones. Sure, you do at times hear cases where they refer to getting children back to the family, allowing closure for the family, that sort of thing. But generally, when they're not referring directly to the parents, it does make me question what's going on with the investigation.
We will now proceed with the question and answer period. For the benefit of all participants, please provide your name, the outlet you represent, and to whom your question is directed. We will be limiting the question and answer period to one question and one follow-up. On va commencer à ma gauche ici, so we'll start on my left over here if someone has a question on this side.
Yeah. Here, Moran for Radio Canada. You said you're going over areas that you've already seen. What's the purpose of that? When before that you were telling us you were extending the search, and if you could say it in French and English.
If you'd like to start in English, I'll. Sure.
Okay, I boosted that as much as I could. Sounded to me like she was asking why they were going over areas they'd been as opposed to extending out the search.
French?
What we'll be doing is we'll be continuing on. Just because today the search is being scaled back, we still will continue on, and we will go back to areas that we feel that we may need to re-look at, and we may expand out if if there's any type of information that leads us to believe that we need to do that.
So if you'd like to follow up. Sorry, I'll...
Like, why, like, how would that help you to specifically go to places that have been searched by hundreds of people, like you're saying? Like, how could that help you find new links?
Yeah, because of the terrain, there could be different types of things that we may want to try and get back in if we are able to locate anything that may come up that the searchers didn't go catch the first time. But we will do everything we can to try and find Jack and Lily.
This is something that Texas EquiSearch have discussed in the past, and that is that basically it is best practice to go over areas that are harder to search again with different fresh searches. These search parties, or the searchers that were out doing this, were working 12-hour shifts, and it can be easy to miss something if you just look away at the wrong time, or if you're talking about a particularly densely wooded area, steep slopes, all sorts of things which make for challenging search conditions. So that's standard practice. But I also wonder if perhaps it could be to do with, like I said before, areas that perhaps the children may have been taken and left, as opposed to areas that they may have wandered off to.
Yeah, and based on the weather, the season changes, we don't want to leave, and we're not leaving. It's just that this part of this search is being scaled back.
Yes.
I guess, you've done an incredibly exhaustive search in the area, and major crime is also here, and having not found these children, having done a very thorough search, can you tell us, like, the role of major crime in this, and what you can tell us about that investigation?
Well, that journalist's been round the block a few times, hasn't he? He knows exactly what to ask. He points out that it's been an exhaustive search, so he wants to know exactly what the role of major crime is in this case. In other words, he's trying to find a way to get them to admit that they are now looking at it as a criminal case.
Rob McCammon, Robert, and MCCAMON is the last name. So major crime became involved very early in the investigation. We're able to bring in some specialized knowledge and skill sets, and we help with the information management and decision making. As we scale back, as we've identified, there are certain areas that are going to be relooked at that could contain a confined area perhaps, and maybe need some more specialized search areas. But I'll leave that to the search crews to expand on. And we're going to continue pursuing any leads or information that comes in, and the stuff that we do have. We have engaged in all areas of the RCMP. All tools that are available to us are being considered and engaged when appropriate.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, as a follow-up, that I guess the general population looks at it and says, you've searched very thoroughly this area.
Mm-hmm.
You would have found them if they were there, which then makes people, certainly on social media, people are assuming, rightly or wrongly, that there's a criminal element to this.
Sure.
And can you, I know, what can you tell me about that, your work on that potential?
Well, I can't really speculate on the investigation, obviously. That wouldn't be fair to the process. But we are constantly reviewing everything that's been done, looking at all different facets of available information, and we'll make decisions on that. I can't really comment on the details of that, but we will pursue every lead that becomes available and take it to where it needs to go.
So
That is a classic example of how to admit you're running a criminal investigation without admitting that you're running a criminal investigation. He's being so very careful about choosing his words And he's saying things like, we're going to continue to pursue leads or info that comes in, meaning that they have been given leads, they have been given information. And when asked if there is a criminal element, they can't speculate on the investigation. In other words, we can't share that information with you right now. We are 100 steps ahead of you guys, essentially. Don't forget, this is after him saying, oh, we're just here to offer resources.
Is there a question? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, Nicholas Sagan with CTC National News. You at first said it wasn't suspicious, you think the kids just wandered off. Now you're saying every missing person's investigation is considered suspicious. Is it still suspicious? Are there any suspects here?
Again, I'm not going to comment on the details of the investigation, but I will comment, when somebody goes missing and we become engaged as any police officer, not just major crime, we will look at all the details and make considerations on the information we have, right? When it comes to a missing person, we have to automatically consider are there people that have different charter implications and things like that, so we will automatically start to consider what evidence is pointing us towards a suspicious in nature. Again, I can't comment more than that, but every missing person case, we would approach it from the same process, a methodical collection and review of information with decisions based on that.
He's determined not to give up any information. Now, let's be clear though, it is best practice in cases like this to immediately treat it as a criminal case until you can rule out possibilities. You just have to look at the Jean-Benet Ramsey case. They screwed that up because they didn't look at it in terms of a criminal investigation, meaning that by the time her body was found, there'd been every man and his dog through that house. The family had had all their friends around. Law enforcement had been traipsing through the house. There was no attempt to do anything that would preserve evidence should it have proven that it was more than just a abduction. But at the same time, the way he keeps talking to, we have to act on information that we have, yada, 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 certainly makes me think they have information that is making them look elsewhere and not in terms of the children just wandering off.
The family has said they believe it's an abduction or they suspect it's an abduction. Are there now any clues or anything leading you to think that that might be possible?
If we had any information that led that way and we felt that we could provide anything with the public, we would have done that. We would have got that information out. We're working very closely with the family and we will pursue every avenue. But again, I'm not going to make any specific comments, but anything that would point towards that, we would immediately take steps to address things that need to be addressed.
In a nutshell, she's saying the family believe it's an abduction, and he's saying basically, if we had anything that pointed towards an abduction, you would know about it. And then you get the standard line, we are working closely with the family, very closely with the family. To me, that says they've been asking a lot of questions of the family.
Blair Rhodes with CBC. I think this question is most appropriate to Staff Sergeant. You talked about survivability. I was wondering if you could address that specifically, given the ages of the two missing children and the weather conditions we've experienced this week.
Yeah, so the incident command person with the RCMP, along with the search manager, at some point have to make a decision when would it scale back this search. And a number of factors would have to take consideration, and they would, based upon scientific information that they have, to deem when that time has to come, and that is now. And a lot of those factors come into play would be the age of the missing persons, the weather, how long it's been, what area has been covered. So at that point, they have to make a decision on that.
What a difficult question to have to answer. Essentially, it's the asking for justification of the search being scaled back. Asking, how can you be certain about the survivability of the children? What factors do you look at there? Which, is essentially saying, are you sure that now's the right time to scale back the search? So, yeah, I feel sorry for this guy having to answer that question. Like I said, it's not just about the survivability. I believe that they've covered the area so well, and I suspect that they have some other information which tells them that continuing a full-scale search is only putting their searchers at risk of injury, basically, when they're not likely to find the children still alive.
I hate to ask this, but given their age and the conditions, if they were still in the woods, do you think they would still be alive?
I guess it goes back to all those factors that have to come into play, right? So we are scaling back because it's time to move to a different part of the search.
It's time to move to a different part of the search. They're not talking about search as in being out in the woods. They're talking about the investigation. Essentially, he's saying we are now looking in a different direction and not looking at the scenario of these children wandering off into the woods. This is what I love about the question and answer part, because basically these guys are not working off prepared speeches, and this is when they say things that may actually give a little bit of additional information when they don't intend to do so.
First off, sir, Paul Holmes from CTV. Scale back versus active search. I know yesterday there was a number at or around 140 searchers on the ground, before square kilometers. You said, can you quantify what scaled back is? Like fewer searchers, smaller area, larger area? How does that look going forward?
Yeah, so just to go to the first point, there's been a lot of searchers here, and we can't thank them enough for being here. They've given up. A lot of them have been here since day one, and they have given up. Some have taken time off work, some have left their families behind, and we are very grateful for that. Saying that, we will look in on them and their senior managers to give us some recommendations of what else we can do, but we will take that and we will explore whatever we have and whatever we can do to check it in spots that need to be checked or whatever. But at this point in time, after today, we just won't see all these searchers here.
My follow-up for the searchers.
Sure. Amy, if you're comfortable with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I saw a person yesterday who was dressed like you, limping, being carried out. People were hot and sweaty to the South Services Point, a lot of hard work. Can you talk about how rough it was in the woods? Like, it looks almost impassable. What did you see, or what did your people and your team see when you went into this wilderness?
That really does highlight the challenges for searchers. That someone was being assisted, they were limping and being carried out, I think he said. And he's asking her about the terrain, essentially, and how hard it is for them.
Well, these woods, they are very thick. There's a lot of the hurricane damage from Fiona a couple years ago, and we've had teams struggling to get through areas, and I can't say anything more about the searchers. They're pushing through all of these areas, going through all of these deadfalls, going through waterways and anything possible just to cover their search areas. So we know that everything has been so thoroughly searched that it's time to, as they say, scale back and we are exhausting people, and we're starting to see more injuries coming back the last couple of days, and it's hard terrain. Amy Hansen.
So they're talking about terrain that for fully grown adults is hard to navigate. And we're talking about a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. So it must have been just so heartbreaking for those searchers to be searching in that area. And I reckon they probably knew, just based on the terrain, that they weren't going to find those kids. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe there'll be a miracle and these kids will be found. But when you see the interviews with the parents, you'll understand what I'm talking about.
And
SEN.
And I will note as well, having had the opportunity to participate yesterday in a helicopter search as well, it is immensely clear looking from above, based on the orange tags on the trees, how thoroughly and meticulously the area has been searched, based on the indications you can see even from up in the air of how thorough the searches are. So I also give a hats off to the many searchers who have participated here in support of finding Lily and Jack. Yeah, would you like to go ahead?
Just with the search still continuing in the forest, is there evidence that the children are in the forest?
Very slowly.
So now there's a big delay, which I've edited out, while they wait for the train to go past.
I'll note as well the reason that the train is passing by slowly is out of respect for the fact that Lily and Jack are missing here. So it's passing slow in order to have their staff be aware and note the ongoing missing person investigation happening in the area here. So that just does again speak to the number of people involved and aware of this search and everything that's happening in this area, and the awareness and the way that the information has spread so widely through Nova Scotia and Canada. So I think we were with your question.
Okay, I edited out the question for this part because of the sound of the squeaking wheels from the train, because had I boosted the audio for that so you could hear the question being asked, it would have been very unpleasant. Basically, she was asking if there was any evidence that the children could actually be in the woods.
So at one point there was a possible boot impression found, and I can tell you that the search and rescuers then performed grid searches of that area and expanded out from that area in a meticulous fashion. They're focused and tight searches, and nothing else was found.
Now, this is supposedly the boots that they were wearing. Obviously, these are not the identical boots. These are obviously product images. But so him saying that they found a boot impression and did a grid search out from there. These are gum boots. These have solid treads. So, to me, I can't help thinking that the kids didn't put that boot impression there themselves. You would expect to see more than just one boot impression. It could also just be something from the day before, because apparently it was out behind the house. But it just seems odd that they're saying one boot impression and they didn't find any other evidence. Sure, it could be rocky ground, but if he's saying they did a grid search, you can't tell me there would only be one single soft area of ground in that whole area.
It appeared it was a possible boot print of a smaller boot print. So when we have a possibility like that, that's when we exhaust that area as well. So make sure that that wasn't a clue that we were missing.
Lindsay Armstrong with Canadian Press. I'm wondering, I understand K9 unit has been involved. Have cadaver dogs been involved at this point?
I don't believe cadaver dogs have been involved at this point yet.
Will they become involved?
That-
And I'd also like to circle back to Blair's question on survivability. If you could give a little bit more detail there about how you're making the equation, bringing in cadaver dogs and assessing survivability.
So cadaver dogs could be the next step in terms of part when we talk about scaling back. That could be another option that we now look at using. And getting back to that point, I mean, that decision was made based on a lot of factors. And if we thought they were alive right now, we'd still be out there.
Now, let's be real. Children can survive, well, anyone can survive longer than a week without food. It had been raining, so, you know, they weren't without water entirely. Yes, definitely huge chance of hypothermia. But him being so certain that the children were no longer alive after only a week, it says to me that they definitely have other knowledge. They're not begging people to check outhouses to see if the children could possibly be hidden in there, injured or scared or anything. They're not suggesting that the children might have found somewhere to shelter and stayed there and could still be alive. They're saying that they don't believe that they are still alive. It's interesting that the question about have you had in cadaver dogs yet, and is no, we haven't. And then that could be a future direction. We've seen scent dogs, tracker dogs in news footage, but cadaver dogs not been a consideration. Will they bring them in? He's saying that could be a future direction. So on one hand, he's saying we don't believe they're still alive, but he's not giving a definite yes, we're bringing in cadaver dogs. Is it possible that the children could have been taken somewhere else? The children are not alive and have been taken somewhere else. Or is it that they were wanting to have all their volunteers off scene before they really got down to that side of the investigation?
So could be, does that mean that no plans yet?
Not that I'm aware I can speak to of the cadaver dogs are coming or not. I can't speak to it.
Thank you. Is there a question here? No, well, so George, do you two have something global? No? Okay. Ready to start?
I do.
Sure,
Hi,
thank you.
I'm Lindsay Jones with the Globe and Mail. Wondering if you can clarify, we heard major crime has been involved since Sunday, is that correct?
Saturday morning.
Since Saturday, okay. So do you believe the children from that foul play?
Bam, straight to the point. So basically, major crimes became involved the day after the children went missing. And now she's asking if they suspect foul play.
Do you want to talk?
Again, I'm not going to comment on specifics of the investigation. We're going to continue on, and when we get to a point that we've got information that we're able to make any decisions that are able to be public, we'll let you know at that time. But right now, I'm not going to comment on specifics. So.
Translation, we do believe it was foul play. We can't tell you anything right now because it's going to compromise our investigation.
Okay, so, but you don't believe the children are alive anymore?
No, based on the experts and the review of the facts, the inclement weather, the time frames, and their age, the likelihood that they're alive right now is very low.
Okay, and can I just ask one more question about the scaling back of the search? Are you reducing the number of searchers out there, or is it being concentrated just with RCMP now, or how is that looking differently on the ground?
Yeah, absolutely. So the searchers will be finishing at the end of their operational period today, and now it'll come back to the Pictou District RCMP, and we'll make decisions and put in plans of how we move forward.
So rather than having the large presence here, the massive number of searchers on scene every day, searches will be based on information that comes in and specifics in order to make things pointed and specific to areas that are pinpointed or specific to a search need in the area. I believe we've gone through the group for questions at this point. So out of respect for the police officers here and the many searchers who are still there, I'd like to conclude our media availability today. Oh, sorry, is there one person with... Sorry, my apologies, sorry.
No worries. Alex Terrio, Stingray Radio. You mentioned you're circling back to find clues. You talked about the blueprint. Are there anything you're looking to find, expecting to find, or usually find in these situations?
We're looking for any type of clue, any information to help us out. And then we'll take that information and work forward from that.
Second follow-up, is the blueprint still involved in the search process, or was that deemed to be not relevant?
I can't say it's not relevant, but it was the search was exhausted in that area, and we were not able to find any more clues or evidence in that area. So.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, can you clarify? You just said to the previous question that the ground search and rescue is being called, like the volunteers are being called off after today?
Yes, at the end of the operational period today, they will be done.
Again, out of respect for the search and rescue teams that continue to be on scene here and the police as well, we conclude this media availability today. And our thoughts do remain with Lily and Jack's loved ones at this difficult time.
Okay, so I'm going to play interviews with the stepfather and the mother. But like I said, I'm going to really dig into these in a separate video because there's a lot going on here.
We were searching. We covered everywhere possible. Even in the first day we did. Even with me running through the woods, I was ahead of the helicopters and ahead of the drones and stuff like that. Screaming as loud as I can, just until my throat hurt. Running through water that was up to my waist. And
this guy has watched far too many action movies. He sounds like Rambo, the way he's talking.
As soon as I got back, I wasn't allowed back in the woods until a man dressed in a military outfit said I could go back into the woods.
In that brief moment, he actually looks distressed. But, like I said, I'm going to talk on this in a separate video because this is a longer interview and I do have questions.
4 days into the search for his missing stepkids, Lily and Jack Sullivan, Daniel Martel is pleading with the public to keep their eyes peeled. But he has begun to lose hope they are anywhere in the vicinity.
They hate being wet and cold, so they immediately would have came right back into the house. The only two prints are right beside the house facing the road, and then that's it.
Martel wants the search to be extended to include provincial borders in case the children were abducted, a reality he says is becoming more and more likely.
Post any officers they can get at the New Brunswick border, PI border, and get them at every airport possible.
So his take on it is there's no way that they would have wandered off into the woods on their own. They must have been abducted. Whereas law enforcement's take on it is there's no way these children were abducted. To me, it starts having shades of Summer Wells, Madeline Soto, all these children who think bad things happened to them and their parents claimed they were abducted. And let's be real too, if he's turning around and saying that he's been doing his Rambo impersonation, searching for them through the woods, on one hand, and then saying there's no way they would have gone into the woods, on the other hand, that just doesn't mix. It doesn't connect at all.
Martel confirmed that when the two children went missing from the home behind me, Lily was wearing a pink shirt and pink rain boots. She was also carrying a white backpack with strawberries on it. Martel says although he didn't see Jack that morning, he is believed to be wearing a brown shirt, brown pants with a pull-up diaper on underneath, and blue rain boots with dinosaurs on them. He also refuted the claim that the two children are nonverbal, saying while they are on the autism spectrum, they are quite trusting and say hi to everyone. According to Martel, his side of the family are currently the only ones at ground zero after Lily and Jack's mother left the county Saturday. But still, he remains, begging anyone with answers to come forward and bring his children home safe.
So, the word on other channels is that basically she's blocked him. She's gone off to her parents' place and is having absolutely no communication with him whatsoever. That on its own is a huge red flag.
Anybody who has any information, or you think you've seen something or hear something, or any messages from friends about hearing something, just contact your local police services. Anything, guys. Anything.
Ella MacDonald, Global News, Lansdowne Station, Nova Scotia.
6-year-old Lily Sullivan and her brother, 4-year-old Jack Sullivan, are still missing in this rural area of northeastern Nova Scotia. The RCMP is the lead agency here, along with EHS, hundreds of search and rescue crews from Halifax to Cape Breton. During the daytime, there are anywhere from 100 to 140 search and rescue crews in the woods, and the search continues all night. They deploy between 60 and 75 search and rescue crews in the woods all night long. So each searcher will work a 12-hour shift before they have to take a rest. There are 3 helicopters in the air, and there are dogs as well involved in this search, drones too. Search and rescue officials are keeping very close track of which sections of this area around Lansdowne have been searched, and once that area is covered, they move on, and they say it's important that no one wander in.
So this, of course, was prior to the news conference, but I just thought it was worth listening to how much work was going into that search, the resources, the number of people, all that sort of thing. But also they show the terrain quite well as well, which does not look like the sort of terrain that a 6 and a 4-year-old are going to wander off into.
Incidentally, this search has been the first assignment for the Nova Scotia Provincial Guard. They aren't directly involved in the search, but they're helping with traffic, protection of parked vehicles overnight, and just generally giving directions to people who are coming and going, those involved in the search and rescue effort. Earlier today, we spoke to the partner of the 2 children's mother. Here's some of what he had to say about Jack and Lily.
Lily and Jack are awesome kids, very, very kind. They'll talk to anyone. They want to go with anyone. They're just looking to have as much fun as they can. Jack just absolutely loves bugs, dinosaurs, and anything like that. But
okay, so this was the bit that I saw on Paula's channel that basically sent up red flags for me immediately. The way he was suddenly emotional, and he briefly covered his face, trying to show that he was so emotional, but then he took his hand down because he then was checking with his audience to see what reception he was getting from them. So he was talking, he was looking back up and looking down and looking back up. He was checking to see if his story was landing home. That's the way I see it. Sure, there's a bit of a scrunch happening there between his eyes, but they're outside and it looks quite bright out there. So I think that is probably more of a squint than a sign of any kind of distress.
Lily loves girly things, but she also loves doing everything with Jack, bugs. They're like best friends, not just brother and sister.
He says he's also hoping police monitor the New Brunswick border and the airports for any sign of the 2 children. But RCMP tell us this afternoon they're not considering any possible abduction here. As far as they're concerned, they're looking for 2 young children who simply wandered away.
I know that there's a lot of people pulling for these kids to come home. We've heard a lot about the impact that this is having on the community at large and the family, and it's really important that we locate these children and get the information from the scene here and from anyone who might have information about the kids and their habits. So it's been really important to have engagement from anyone who knows these kids.
That to me straight out says criminal investigation, because obviously the parents are going to know best whether or not the kids are likely to wander off into the bush. That information they can get from the parents. But she's basically saying, we need anyone who's got any information about these kids, knows anything about these kids, we need you to come and talk to us. Meaning, this is a criminal investigation. We're trying to basically put the pieces together to figure out what has actually occurred here.
Spokesperson for the Chignecto Central Regional Center for Education tells us the two children were students at Salt Springs Elementary School. Their stepdad told us they'd both been out sick all week before disappearing on Friday. The school has additional support staff on site at Salt Springs if anyone needs that support. Meanwhile, the search will continue into the night here in the Lansdowne area of Pictou County for young Jack and Lily Sullivan. RCMP and search and rescue officials tell us they will have search and rescue crews on the ground. They'll have dogs with them, and they'll have drones in the sky all night long. Preston Mulligan, CBC News, Lansdowne, Pictou County.
That is hugely, hugely concerning to me. Both kids have been absent from school for a week before they were reported missing, which makes me question if that was actually when they went missing, or if, like we've seen in so many other cases, the parents were buying themselves time. Harmony Montgomery, Sincere and Classic and Sincere, is that right? Madalena Kojakari. It seems to be a thing of children being missing for some time before their parents actually report them missing. So it could well be that by the time law enforcement was involved, the trail was well and truly cold. I would like to know if there are any confirmed sightings of the children in the week prior to when they were reported missing. And it's this point where I do just want to comment on this photo of Jack, the sore on his chin. I've seen these kinds of injuries on children before. It looks like a cigarette burn to me. I could be wrong. It could be just gravel rash from hitting the deck somewhere. But there's no bruising around it. There's no additional injuries. It looks like the right size for a cigarette burn, which again is a red flag to me.
As RCMP combed through woods and fields searching for 6-year-old Lily and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan, their stepfather Daniel Martel spends every evening conducting his own search.
As soon as I seen they were missing, I jumped right in the vehicle and I did every dirt road and searched every culvert.
The children are thought to have wandered away from their home in Lansdowne Station on Friday morning. Martel believes they were only gone for about 20 minutes before he and their mother noticed they were missing.
The very first day I wasn't around very much because I was just searching. I was running through the woods, screaming their name till my throat hurt.
Martel says the only concrete clue so far is a boot print found near the backyard of the property. RCMP haven't shared any additional evidence.
The officers and searchers on site are following up on anything that comes up that provides direction, provides specifics, and provides something that can be used to narrow the search.
Martel and the children's mother have been in a relationship for 3 years now. Malaya Brooks Murray told CTV News she's still holding out hope Jack and Lily will be found. She is now staying with family outside the county, and Martel says she hasn't spoken to him since. Hundreds of people have been searching for 5 days now. Martel is worried the children have been abducted.
Hardly any evidence at all since the first day. It's mind-boggling that nothing else was found.
The RCMP.
Now, let's be realistic. Even with missing children, law enforcement aren't necessarily going to divulge everything to the parents. So for him saying that hardly any evidence has been found since the first day, do find that to be a very, very interesting comment.
P would not confirm if Major Crime is investigating.
There's a variety of teams who are applying their skills and expertise in order to assist in the search. I can't comment on what any of the specific teams are beyond what's involved in the search on the ground here.
Every day the children aren't found is taking a toll on Martel.
Just waiting and waiting for him to come home.
Todd, the media has been kept away from the command center today. RCMP and the search team had to move after being asked to leave a private property they were on. RCMP says this doesn't impact their operations.
And the last thing from this video is an interview with the mother. So, as mentioned in this video, she cleared out pretty quickly, and she's not having any communication with the stepfather at all. That is a huge, huge, huge red flag to me. The only positive there is that basically if one of these parents was involved, and only one of these parents was involved, having them separated like this, having them essentially not talking to each other, could be quite beneficial for the investigation.
I'm just staying as hopeful as possible. I want them home. I want to hold them. And I want them home. What happened was we woke up, I heard them playing in the next room beside us, and I was drifting in and out of sleep, and they're not the type of kids that we tell them not to go outside on their own. We always make sure that we're out there with them, watching them, and they happen to just get out that sliding door and we can't hear it when it opens. And they were outside playing, but we weren't aware of it at the time. And the next thing we knew, it was quiet. And we get up and I tell him, my partner, Daniel, I tell him, "Do you hear the kids?" And he says, "No." And we get up instantly. We're looking outside. We're looking everywhere, yelling for them. And I instantly just call 911. I just had the instinct I needed to call.
Okay, this reminds me of the Michael Vaughan case. And I know people got upset over criticism of the parents in the Michael Vaughan case. But I'm going to say this outright here too. Let's say that what they're saying is truthful, and that all that has actually occurred, and I shouldn't say all because obviously I don't think these children are coming back, but let's just say that they were being truthful and the children did take themselves off for a morning walk and get lost. If you know you have 2 young children who are likely to head off out of the house while you're still asleep in bed, why not do something about this sliding door that's apparently so quiet that you wouldn't even hear it open and close? Why was that not secured? I get that it's a rural area, so a lot of people don't lock their doors in rural areas. But when you've got young kids involved, then that's a different kettle of fish. Especially if your kids can open that door. You live right next to woodlands, and there's waterways, and it didn't occur to you to make sure that the kids couldn't let themselves out of the house. But to be perfectly honest, that's just not my one concern here with this interview. There's a number of things here that stand out for me that make me wonder, that make me have questions. And like I said, I'll talk about that in a separate video because I really want to dig deep and do a really thorough analysis of what is going on here.
They're both really go-lucky children. They're so sweet. They talk to anyone. They'll talk your ear off. They will speak to anyone in a store. Everyone. They're just extremely sweet kids. I appreciate the huge search effort going on right now, but we've been pushing for an Amber Alert, which hasn't been issued. Not just that they could possibly be abducted, which it is a possibility that they could have been, but just an alert to let everyone know that they are missing. We had people text me saying that they weren't aware, someone else let them know that they were missing, and it would just be nice if everyone could be alerted. We thought maybe that we found tracks, but it's still uncertain. It's been raining and they're probably soaking wet, but with the sun today, I'm hopeful that they are feeling warm. We're all filled with pain and sorrow because we just want them found. We want them home. Everyone loves them. They are definitely verbal, and they do have possible autism, but it's not extreme autism. It's just they have issues with school, and they don't catch up with the other kids.
Okay, let's call a spade here. I don't think these children come from the perfect home life. Them both having issues at school, combined with several other things, it makes me think that there were problems at home for these children, for this family. And I'd imagine this is something that detectives will be looking very closely at.
I just want to remain hopeful. But there's always, in a mother's mind, you're always thinking the worst. Last night was one of the worst nights because I didn't have them in their beds. And I don't want to go through that another night without them.
Okay, I couldn't help but have Chris Watts flashbacks just then when she said about last night was difficult because she didn't have them in their beds. I can't remember what it was that Chris Watts said, but it was definitely something similar with regards to his girls the day after they went missing. So, yes, this was a quick overview. Haven't really done any deep dives or anything yet. There's a lot of information coming out. And I think we can all see the direction that this case is going in. So I'm going to leave it at this. And I will do a video looking at the mother's interview and a video looking at the stepfather's various clips of interviews. Because I think it's important for us to take a closer look at what's being said there and take a closer look at not just what is being said, but the accompanying body language. Like I said, when I first started watching this on Plunder True Crime, within the first couple of minutes, I was just sitting here going, no, this is not right. This whole case is not right. So I needed to speak about it on my channel. So on that note, if you are new to my channel, please subscribe. Also, please hit the like button. YouTube loves it when you do that. And leave a comment below. What are your thoughts based on what we've looked at so far in this video? So, thank you. And I will catch you in the next one.